Welcome to another Friday workshop for your BloodHound training. So Steven's using a Renko bar, and in this particular case he's using the backtest Renko. So what he'd like to find, or actually what he wants to do, is he wants to be able to get into the trade on these wicks, on these long pullbacks, as he's highlighted. And according to the blue highlight. So I imagine it'd be this wick and maybe this wick over here on the left. Now he's got circled in red over here on the right. He doesn't want to get in when the trade reverses. So Steven didn't give me enough information to know how is he identifying when the bar is going to reverse and when it's not. That's to me that's predicting the future. But I can't show you how to get into a trade, when you get this wick. Now, whether or not price continues to move up and reverse on you, and then make a bar, in the opposite direction, well, that's another. That's just the randomness of the market, right? So there's no way to know if a bar is going to reverse on you, or if it's just going to make a wick, as far as I know. So. And if anybody else knows how to predict that, I'd love to know. I'd love to hear from you. We could make lots of money. All right. So anyway, what I'm going to show you here is essentially how to get in on these pullbacks. And so the other secondary condition of this is that he wants to get in on the pullback itself, instead of waiting for the bar to close, in which case price is going to be way back down here again. So he doesn't want to get in down here after the bar closes. He wants to get in on the wick. So as price is building the wick, that's when he wants to get in. So that's a combination of things. So that's not just BloodHound, but that's going to be BloodHound plus a setting in Raven. So all right, so that's what we're going to do. So let me minimize that, and I've already got a chart set up here. So it looks like we've got a nice long wick there to work with. Let's see if there's any others. Okay, here's a couple more. So now this is something that you won't be able to backtest on a static bar. The only way you could backtest this is with market replay. Because of the fact that he wants to get in, at that pullback price there, right? So on a static chart, on historical bars, so basically I call charts a static chart because price is not moving anymore, right? Price is already locked in. So you can't backtest getting in at these prices on a static chart. It has to be on a live chart or using market replay in order to backtest this. So it's just one of those things about, well, I shouldn't say just Ninja, because Ninja's not the only one who can't do this. Basically, I think almost all charting platforms don't have the ability to be able to kind of backtest a pullback like that. So let's see. All right. So here's our little spot that we'll work with. So I think what I'll have to do is I'll have to switch over to a simulated data feed in order to simulate a pullback like this. So otherwise, yeah, it could take forever for price to actually do what we want. So, all right. So I've got that ready. So let me open up BloodHound. As you can see, I've already got BloodHound on the chart here. So I'm going to open up BloodHound, and we'll get started. All right. So the first thing I need to do, right, is name my system. So I'll use today's date. All right. And next I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the logic board this time. So as you can see, when you first open up a system, there's no logic boards. This is all the name is grayed out, so we have to hit new, and there we go. Now we have a new logic board that we can start working on, and just need to probably give this some kind of a name. There we go. Let's call it a pullback entry. So, all right. So Steven had a certain size Renko bar, right? So these Renko bars, you have to set the brick size and things like that. So you know that you have a predetermined size of the bar, so that way you can calculate, how much of a pullback you want before you enter the trade. So that's something that you will have to calculate. So we're going to have to calculate the distance from the previous bar to where we want to get into the trade. So let me stretch this out a little bit so it becomes a little easier to visualize. There we go. All right, so we're going to be measuring, we're going to be creating an offset from the bar that closed, from the previous bar that's closed, to the price point at which we want to enter into the trade. So let's see. So let me just kind of guesstimate what that is here. Let's pull that chart over a little bit. There we go. So let's see, 1.5 to 10.5. So it looks like 9 points. So on the NQ, it's going to be 9 points. So keep in mind, if you change different instruments, different instruments are going to have. Let's see. Well, actually, no, that's not true. That's right, because the bars, the Renko bars, when you define your Renko bars, right, you define the size of the bar and the reversal size and stuff like that in ticks. So actually, changing the instrument won't affect it, because regardless of what the instrument is, the size of the bar is going to be the same. So in this case, let's see, the NQ runs in quarters, and so this is a 9-point difference. So 36 ticks, yeah, is our offset. Yep. All right. So now that I've kind of measured how many ticks this offset is, now I can set up my solver. So what I'm going to grab is a comparison solver. So this comparison solver, right, it has a difference section, and so we can use this as a measurement tool. So we can use this to measure when an indicator moves a certain distance away, but in this case we're going to measure when the closing price, which is so the last tick is also called the closing price in NinjaTrader. So we're going to be measuring the current closing price when it moves down here to the previous closing price, or the previous bar. So, and we're going to measure that using the difference here. And so we're going to put in 36 ticks in both. So, and now indicator A and indicator B, we're going to set those both to the closing price. So we're going to set them to price. So So indicator A is going to represent the real-time closing price. So we're going to leave the look back to 1. So this is going to become the real-time closing price, or where price currently is in real time. Now indicator B is going to represent the closing price of the previously closed bar. And so to do that, we're going to go to price, and we're going to set our look back to 2 when we do this. So look back set to 2, and we just leave it to the single value. So the single value means just grab whatever the value is 2 bars back. Well, 1 bar back, but with a look back period of 2. So, and let's see, and I'm going to set this long output to, actually no, I'll leave that, yeah, we'll just leave the outputs like they are. So, all right, so that's how it's going to work in real time. Now, of course, we're not going to see a signal here because after the bar closed, so we're not looking at what's happening in real time. So I'll use this to represent the closing price. So the red triangle represents this closing price. So the green dot represents, right, the indicator B's closing price. So right now, what NinjaTrader is looking at, so this closing price of the current bar is actually up here, right? So we'd only get a signal if this bar was building in real time, and when price finally comes down to here in real time, then we'd get a signal. But because, you know, the closing price is actually up here on a static chart, so we're not going to get a signal. So, but what we can do, all right, I can set up a test, and what I can do is I can say, I can have BloodHound look at the low price that down here, right? So let me draw a little arrow. So what I can do is I can have BloodHound look at the low price of the bar, just to make sure that my measurement's correct here. So let's see. So I'm going to use the low price to generate a long signal. And actually, yeah, that's good I did this, because I realized that essentially we're kind of building a counter trend system, right? So price is moving down when we actually want a long signal. So that's kind of counter trendish. So I do actually need to reverse the outputs here. So I'm going to reverse the outputs for the long and the short. And there we go. So now we can see this long output. So I know basically by using the low price, I know that my 36 ticks isn't too much. It's not too great. So I would still get a signal here in real time. So, and I can set this temporarily to the high to test for short signals. So let me do that. Let's take a look through the chart here. And let's see. So at every reversal point, I mean, technically this is met. However, actually, yeah, that's true. That's right. So every reversal bar, right, price is going to pull back. Let me grab an arrow here. Right, so when a reversal bar is created, right, price will pull back enough to get into a trade. So it would actually, the system would actually put you in short, and then hopefully you'll have a very small stop, so that if the bar does reverse, you just get stopped out for a small stop. So I imagine that's how you'd want to take care of that. So, because I don't have any way to be able to predict if a bar is going to reverse or not. So every reversal bar you will get into a trade, and you will get stopped out. Hopefully you'll have a stop if you want to trade this. So I'm hoping that Steven manages this style of trading with a small stop like this on the reversal bars. So so it looks like these wicks weren't long enough to actually get in the trade. So let's see if we can adjust that. Even that wick wasn't long enough. So I'm going to adjust that 36 tick offset here. So that way we can get a few more trades showing up. And then we'll backtest this using the simulator, the simulated data feed. So let's see, let's try 34. Alright, so 34, we got that short, and we got another short, but still this wick wasn't long enough. So I'll say that's good enough. We'll just use 34 here. Alright, so let me name this solver before I get going too far. So let's see, I'll just call this a wick pullback. Alright, some kind of name like that. So this solver's finding pullback wicks. And essentially that's it. Right, very simple system. So I'm just going to close this out, and yeah, I'm going to take BloodHound off of this chart, and let's see, let me change data feeds first. So we'll disconnect from Kinetic. So you do have to disconnect from all your other data feeds to use Ninja's simulated data feed. So we'll connect that up there. And I'll pull this out of the way. And alright. Okay, good. So basically I'm going to adjust this simulated feed to create a pullback and generate a short signal here. So while price is moving up a little bit, I'll show you how to set up Raven. So there's a key part in Raven to get this to work. So let me open up the strategy window here. Alright, so we're going to add Raven here. Now when you're setting up Raven, essentially just start from the top and just work your way down until you get to the enable section here to turn it on. So alright, so starting at the top, we're going to put in our BloodHound system. So it's key that earlier I was working in BloodHound, and I had this BloodHound interface open. So before you start working in Raven, it's key to make sure that you close all of your BloodHound interfaces elsewhere. Alright, so just make sure that all your BloodHound interfaces are closed elsewhere before you start working in Raven, because what that does is when you close BloodHound, it saves your changes back to the file. Right? So when you're working in BloodHound, the saves aren't saved, or your changes aren't saved until you close the interface. Right? So closing that other BloodHound that I had open saved everything I did back to the file. So now here in Raven, now I can load this up, and now Raven will show everything, all the changes I made. So when you're working in Raven, I always suggest that you take a look at all your logic templates and make sure everything is connected up correctly. So it's very easy to leave some leaders connected up wrong, as you're kind of testing your stuff out. So, let me adjust the trend here. Oh, I can't. Let's see. All right. So, anyways, so we took a look at our logic template. It looks good. So I'm just going to click OK. And now we're back to the strategy window. So now let me see if I can change my trend. Oh, all right. I need to close out the strategy window because I don't want price to keep moving up and reversing on me yet. So let me pull price back down so I don't lose this trade. Alright, let's just give this a moment for price to come back down. Alright, that ought to be good enough. Okay, so I'm going to open up the strategy window again. There we go. So now we'll finish setting up Raven here. And let's see. One thing I remembered is, remember the way I left this solver, actually I left this solver in kind of a test mode. Remember I was using the low and high prices, so I need to change this back to the closing price. So using the low and high was just to do some back testing on a static chart. So all right, so set that back to the closing price, and now we're good to go. All right, I'm going to set my entry logic to the pullback entry, and let's see, we're just going to use a market order here, so I'll leave that on false. So here's something that will come into play with this type of trading system. So I'll get back to this setting here in a moment. So, but I'm going to set this to true. And let's see. Essentially, I don't have to change anything else. So let's just set a profit target here. We'll set 34. And let's see, so what would the stop need to be for a reversal bar? Let's see, I set the reversal at 40 ticks. So just doing some simple math, I'll just set a 7-tick stop. So, and so here is one of the critical settings to make this work in real time. So the calculator on bar close, it has to be set to false. Alright, so what that does is, with this set to being false, what that does is that allows Raven to analyze the closing price of the current bar that's building. Right, so Raven's actually using the closing price here that's actually moving in real time on this current bar that's building. So that's how we're able to get this system to work, is by setting this to false. And so the current closing price is the one that's actually moving, and the previous closing price will be on right, the closed bar, the previous closed bar here. So now getting back to this, so allow re-entries on the same bar. So this only comes into play when we have calculate on bar close set to false. Right, so with this set to false, if we're looking at the closing price on the current building bar, you can imagine that with some systems, price could move up, get you into a trade, get you stopped out, and then get you back into a trade, get you stopped out, get you back into a trade. Now that wouldn't happen with this particular system just because of the way this one is, but with other systems, other trading systems that may need calculating bar close false, it is very possible that price could just move up and down, get you in, get you stopped, get you in, get you stopped multiple times. So that's what this setting does. This will only allow one trade per bar if you're trading, on the current building bar. So we're going to set this to true when calculating on bar close is set to false. We're going to set this to true. So, all right. Next step is I'll just turn this on and we're good to go. All right. So let me just pull price up to get that trade initiated. So, and so while we're waiting, and I need to turn Raven on. So you see here the auto is disabled right now. The auto trades is disabled. So let's turn this on. So now Raven will start taking trades. So while we're waiting for price to move up, it looks like I got a couple of questions here. Yeah, Asif is asking, can you use the bar length also? Yes, Asif, I think that would work as well. Yeah, we can test that out. Here, so once we get a trade, I think we can test that out. Let's see, and what has John got? Okay, so John's got a question on a, oh, let me get back to John's question. Okay, so there we go. So we got that trade in there. So now let me just pull price down and we'll turn this into a winning trade. I'll just pull price down and get that trade closed out. And so hopefully you guys saw that. As price moved up enough, it got us in. And then the hopes is price will reverse back down and get that trade. So, all right, so back to John's question. So John is wanting to use the ADX as a filter for his trade. So he only wants to allow trades, either trades, long trades and short trades, when the ADX is sloping upward. But if the ADX is sloping downward, he wants to prevent all trades, any trading. So, all right, I'll tell you what, John, I'll add that to this example here. I'll add that to this question. So let's just get this trade closed out, and then we'll use Asif's suggestion of using the bar length solver, and we'll see if that works too. All right. So let me reverse price on here, and that ought to give me plenty of time for price to reverse while I build this system. All right, so I'm going to do something here just for the sake of time, but I would caution you guys about doing this. So I've seen, customers actually building their BloodHound system through Raven like this. So while theoretically it is possible and it does seem to work for the most part, I would caution though that there's no guarantees that if you're building your BloodHound system through Raven that you're going to get what you want. I guess just realize that there could be unexpected issues when doing that. So I don't think I've actually seen any off the top of my head, but just going from the concept that this is something that NinjaTrader never intended to happen, right? NinjaTrader never really intended for to have the ability to basically edit your indicator inside of your strategy in real time. I'm sure those guys probably never even crossed their mind that someone would even do this, but so when we're editing BloodHound through Raven, essentially what we're doing is we're editing our indicator that's providing Raven with the trade signals. So, and all right, so I better cut this kind of short and just get this bar length in here before price moves up too much. So let's and oh, you know what? Hold on. Let me just close that out and shoot. Ah. All right, darn it. All right, let's just make this into a losing trade here. So I'll just turn this into a losing trade, and boom, we got stopped out. Okay. So I'm going to pull price back, and we'll generate a long trade this time. All right, let's go back into get BloodHound opened again. All right, so with the bar length solver, I'm going to set both of the measurements to ticks, and we want 34 ticks on both of these, like so. And connect that up. Now, the bar length solver is going to give you a long and a short output. So we need something. Well, actually, yeah. Let's just we'll just leave it at that. And we'll see what happens here. Let me just pull price down. Well, actually, I'm sorry. We can already see it. So look, this is the bar length solver. It gives us both a long and a short output. So we need a way to filter long, right? A long trade only or a short trade only. So going back into our logic, let's name this. So we got a 34 tick bar length that we're looking for, and let's see. Yeah, I'm going to use the bar direction as my direction. So let's plug that in here. Now, all right. Now you can see Raven just took a trade because I connected my bar direction solver in. So you can see I have continuous signals now. Right, so I just generated a long signal in real time, and Raven took that trade. So I guess that's a good example of why you wouldn't want to really edit your system in Raven, so especially if you have Raven set up to trade your live account. So thankfully this is a sim account, so no harm done. But you know, that just kind of demonstrates it as you're kind of playing around with stuff. You know, if you have Raven running in the background, it's going to take those trades. I should have disabled Raven here before going in and editing stuff like this. So, all right. So we got the bar length solver, and let's see if I can pull. Yeah, let me pull price down, so we can see. Right, we're getting a long signal right now because this is technically an up bar. The body's up, but when the closing price comes down, we're going to have a down body, right? So as price is coming down to form that wick, our body is going to be a down body. And so we're going to get a signal in the wrong direction, right? The bar direction solver now the bar direction is giving us a short, right? So what we need to do is invert that output. Right, invert it. So invert it, and so now let me pull price down a little bit. So now as we get a down body, so in real time we're going to get a down body, and now we've got a long signal. So now we're getting a long signal out of the bar direction when it's a down body. So I hope you can see the body's solid orange, which means it's a down candle. So all right, let me pull this back up a little bit. So now we got our two solvers here, right? So we got one determining the length and one determining or filtering the direction of the trade. So now I just join these together like so, and that generates our signal. All right, so let me pull price down, and we'll get Raven to take this trade. And let's see, let's close out. I need to turn Raven on here. So we have Raven turned on, and now we just kind of sit back and wait. All right, it's getting there. A few more ticks. There we go. Long trade. All right. So there we go. There's another way to do it. You could use a bar length. So all right, and now let's add John's ADX requirement onto this. All right, so I'm going to get the ADX on the chart first. So I always recommend that you have the indicator on the chart so you have a visual representation of what BloodHound is looking at so you can see it yourself on the chart. And let's see here. Oh, you know what? This took a short trade. Oh, interesting. It actually, that didn't work. A SIF, interesting. So, let's see, let me try that again. Let's try this again. So, just trying to see what happened here. So Raven got in the trade here, and yeah, I didn't catch what was happening because I was talking to you guys. So, all right, we'll just do this again. But I think what happened is that, let's see, yeah, for some reason it reversed up here. And I'm wondering if the bar length had something to do with that. Yeah. I'm going to go into the strategy. So, oh, I'm sorry guys, you know what? I gave you the wrong information. So, yeah, it reversed on me because I had this set wrong. I'm sorry. I should have left this on false, on the default setting of false here. So, that was my mistake. All right. So, let's see. Let me disable Raven. Sorry. So, yeah, so back, let me get a little arrow here. So back on this bar here, so I accidentally turned on allow re-entries on the same bar. So what happened was price came down, we went long, and then price came back up and reversed on us because the bar direction solver with this up bar, the bar direction solver, gave us a short signal, and then Raven reversed on that signal. So that makes, yeah, I think it, yeah, Raven reversed here, and then it got stopped out. Yeah, and that was because I had a setting wrong in Raven. So let's set this correctly. All right. So I had to make some changes to Raven here. So I've got Raven disabled, and Raven's flat. So now I can go into my strategies, and let's see, disable it. So I need to disable Raven. All right, sorry, we don't want to allow re-entry. So this should have been left false. Sorry. So leave that at false and enable this. Okay. Now this will work right. So now Raven will take the first trade and ignore any other signals on the same bar. So let's just go through this one more time. Alright, a few more ticks. There we go. Okay, let me reverse it. So to reverse it, let price come down here, and in which case the signal should reverse to a long when the body changes. So one thing about the bar length solver is that this current bar does meet that bar length, and it's always going to meet that bar length because the length of the bar is never going to get smaller. And so the bar direction solver, right? So the bar direction solver is now going to reverse our signal on here. Yeah, see, so it reversed to a long. So that's what happened previously on the previous bars. When it reversed long, Raven reversed the trade because it was allowed to take multiple trades on the same bar. But now Raven is not allowed to take multiple trades. It's just going to take the one trade and just hold on to it until the trade closes out with either your stop or your profit. Alright, so let's just get this trade closed out, and then we'll add the ADX requirement to it. Alright. So I'm going to disable Raven and just make sure everything's flat. Alright, so let's get the ADX on here. Alright, so our ADX is sloping down. Alright, so I'm going to need to generate some more down bars and get a downtrend going, so that way our ADX can start sloping up. Alright, so I'll just leave it there for now. It looks like the ADX is going to start sloping up on us. Looks like it's going to inflect right here and reverse up. So with that, alright, so once again I'm going to do some work. I'm going to work in BloodHound through Raven, which I don't recommend, but for saving time I'm going to do it anyways. Alright, so we've got this alright, pullback entry. So I would recommend using the comparison solver version of this, because the comparison solver version won't generate reversal, the reversal signals for you. So alright, so I'm going to make a copy of this and we'll add the ADX in here. Alright, so we'll just say width and ADX filter. And let's see, so we just want to know when the ADX is sloping up. So we're going to grab a slope solver like so. Alright, I'm going to name this solver alright, let's swap out our SMA for the ADX. So there's our ADX. Alright, we're just using a 14 period. And there's only one plot, so everything's selected good. And as we look on our chart, alright, pretty simple. ADX slopes down, we get a short signal. So when the ADX is sloping down, we want no signal. And then when the ADX is sloping up, we want long and short when the ADX is sloping up. So let's see. I'm gonna set the evaluate to long only. Right, so that got rid of the short when it was sloping down. So now when it's sloping down, there's nothing going on. no output. All right. And let's see. Next, let's try something here. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work. All right, so next I'm gonna use a function node. So I'm gonna put that ADX slope solver through a function node, and you can see right now the default mode is set to swap. You can see it reversed our long output to a short output, but what we want is we're going to mirror the long output. All right, so when we mirror that long output, it gives us the short output as well. And there's probably lots of things that'll work for this particular function that we need. I could use addition. That's going to work as well. Let's see. Maximum, yeah, maximum would work as well. You know, there's several options here, but mirroring the long, you know, makes the most sense. You know, just the name of it makes the most sense. So, so let's see. Let's change the name of that solver like so. All right. So here's our filter. So we only want signals when the ADX is sloping up. And we want, so John wants to allow both long and short signals. So that's why we need to get a long and a short signal out of our ADX filter. So that way it allows both longs and shorts, right? Otherwise, if we just used the slope solver like this, right, this would only allow long signals to get through. And we can see no short trades would ever be able to be taken because there's no short output here. So that's why we're going to use this guy to get both a long and a short, right? So the concept is the ADX is a non-directional indicator, right? The ADX just tells you whether you're in a trend or not. Right? It doesn't tell you the direction of the trend. It just says that there is a trend happening. So that means it's non-directional condition. So whenever you're building like non-directional conditions or filters, you're typically going to want a long and a short output at the same time. All right. Okay, so now the last step is we just connect all this stuff together with an AND node. Put an AND node in here. Connect that up. And I'll enable Raven, and let's get Raven to execute that trade for us. So I'll pull price up here. So we definitely have a nice upswing on our ADX. So that'll allow some trades to go through. All right, yeah, these are really long bars. So we do need to be a little patient and waiting for price to get up to where we want it to take that trade. All right, so it looks like John understood what's going on here, so he's got his answer. All right. So guys, if there's any other questions out there, please type them in. So I've run out of questions. So since I've run out of questions, I'm just going to let Raven execute this trade, and basically I'm going to try and get the ADX to start sloping down and then try and get a trade to happen just so you can see. Just so you can see that's working. So I'm just going to stall for time while you guys give me some more questions. Let's see. Otherwise, I can continue on to the next solver in the list here. I think it's the channel width or the support resistance. We'll figure out here. All right, so we got a trade happening right here. All right, ADX sloping up. and we got trade. So, all right, and cool. So it looks like the ADX might be, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna make some more up bars. Try and get the ADX to slope down a little bit. Yeah, already that ADX is sloping up again. So maybe if I make another reversal bar, it'll push the ADX sloping down. Oh yeah, another thing to keep in mind. Remember, Raven is running with that calculate on bar close set to false. So that means all the indicators running inside of BloodHound are also set to calculate on bar close false. So really, to really see what BloodHound's seeing, I should have taken my ADX and set this to false as well. Alright, but let's see. Yeah, I guess I'll set that right now. It's going to reset Raven. Alright, there we go. So now we can see the ADX in real time here. So as price comes down, that trade's not going to get executed because the ADX is sloping down. Well, look at that. It did happen. All right. All right. I'm going to try and get price to just kind of oscillate around a little bit, and let's see what happened here. Oh, here's what happened. So, sorry. Raven's not trading this system. So, yep. Remember, I've got two logic templates here. Raven's not trading the ADX filter. I need to go in here. So let me turn Raven off. I'm going to close out this trade. And let's see, let me get price to move back up a little bit. So, and as I go into the strategies, take a look at Raven. Remember, Raven is trading just the pullback entry. It's not trading that new one. So let's turn this off. And I need to tell Raven to trade our ADX one. There we go. Alright, and now let's turn this back on. There we go. Turn Raven back on. Alright, so I'm going to push price back up and try and get a trade going. And we can see that the ADX is still sloping down on us. So no trade should happen. So just gotta wait for price to move up now. Alright, while I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna see which solver is next on the list to cover. And there we go, no trade. No trade took place. So I'll just let price move up a little bit, and hopefully the ADX will start sloping up once we get an uptrend established. Alright, so it looks like the next solver on the list for me to cover is going to be the Regression Channel Width. So that's a pretty simple one to understand, and then we'll move on to the support resistance if you guys don't have any questions for me. Alright, so we got the ADX now sloping up, so let me generate a little pullback, and now a trade should be executed. So I'll take this opportunity kind of fill you in on some of NinjaTrader's can and can't things. So from time to time I get people asking me, can they, as I set them up with Raven and show them, how to use Raven, they say, well, okay, can I just save this in a chart template, save a chart template to load this all up again. And so the answer is yes, you can, but chart templates do not save strategies on the chart. So a chart template will not load a strategy on a chart. And I'm sure that NinjaTrader did that as a safety feature, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to accidentally load a chart template and have a strategy thrown on your chart and starting to trade in the background, right? That would be kind of disastrous. So chart templates will not restore a strategy on a chart. All right, so there we go. We got our trade. No. And ADX is sloping up, and our trade fired off. So looks like everything's working. So is there any questions on this before I move on to the next topic? So this definitely, getting these pullbacks definitely looks interesting, especially considering how small your stop is, as opposed to your profit. So, well, also at the same time, these are really large bars, right? So the reversal is 40 ticks. So price has to move 40 ticks to generate a reversal. But, your risk reward on this is about 4 to 1. Actually, probably a little more than 4 to 1. At least on this bar size it is. So, in this example. So, interesting system to consider. Because even if you do get a bunch of reversals stopping you out, you have to get 5 stop outs for every winner to turn this into a losing trade. Alright, we'll just let this run, close that out, and bingo. Alright, so I'm going to turn Raven off. We'll close this out, and I'm just going to, well, actually, yeah, there's another thing about NinjaTrader. So I'm going to load up my standard chart template, and of course it's going to tell me that the strategy is going to get removed. Alright, strategy is removed, and let's take a look in the strategies window. Yep, so completely removed it off of the chart. However, let's take a look at the control panel here. So in the control center, if we look at strategies, you can see that strategy is still left in the control center, right? So, so this is Raven on the NQ, and remember we were using the back test Renko with a body of 20 and a reversal of 40, right? So what Ninja does is Ninja just put this strategy into the background, so it's still on your strategy tab. So I suggest you check, if you are using Raven, I'd suggest that you check the strategy tab from time to time and clear out any of these old strategies that aren't running anymore. Just remove them, clear them out of there. So it's just kind of garbage left in Ninja's database. It's just more stuff that Ninja has to process. So, I'd recommend just removing it, so that way Ninja doesn't have to process it, doesn't clutter up the database, keeps things running a little smoother for Ninja. So, alright, so let me see. It looks like John's got a question in here. Let's see, when he's using the DM indicator with a comparison solver, and then checking the threshold of the ADX with, just the threshold of the ADX gives a pretty good indication of trend. Trend and strength and momentum of the current trend in place. So, yep, that's definitely what the DM indicator is for. So I always learned to call the DMI indicator. I'm not sure why Ninja took the I off, but in other charting platforms, I'm used to seeing the DM. Well, actually, there is the DMI, but I'm used to seeing the DM called the DMI. But yeah, there's always subtle differences between all of the charting software out there. So if we take the DM indicator, right, the DM indicator has the DI plus, the ADX, and the DI minus. So this indicator was created as a trend indication. So let's see. I'm going to take my ADX and I'll make it white. And so, yeah, we get some weird results on a Renko bar. Yeah, this indicator was probably originally built for minute bars. So let's see. Let's run the NQ. How about if I make a 4-range chart? And there we go. So there's more of a standard look for the DM indicator. And so you can see the ADX on here, so telling us when we're in a trend, right? So we could build kind of a multi-faceted solver system that's looking to see when the ADX is telling us that we're in a trend, and not only a trend, but a strong trend as well. And so here, I'm going to turn this comment into a topic for you guys. Let's see. And I'm going to turn off all the text on that chart. A little distracting. There we go. And let me get back to some normal data here. So disconnect that simulated. We'll go back to some real data. Alright, so here's an indication from the DM indicator that we're really in a good trend here. So we have the DI minus sloping up and the DI plus sloping down, and the ADX is sloping up. Whereas over here, we can see the ADX is kind of flattening down and then starts to slope down. So that tells us that we're kind of losing the trend, and that you could be entering into some consolidation. And of course the DI minus, so the red line is the DI minus, is sloping down. So we can build solvers to kind of look for this optimal condition here, right? So this doesn't mean that you're no longer in a trend. You know, in the way this works is it still tells you in a downtrend, but it's like it's identifying that a pullback happened, or we could be in for a little bit of consolidation before price continues to move into the downtrend. Yeah. So like right here, this is perfect. So we got this few bars here where we definitely had price coming down pretty strong, and our indicator showed that. And then from then on, right, we're still in a downtrend, but it's a consolidating downtrend. And so we can see this indicator is kind of, the ADX flattens out and then starts to roll over and slope down, and the DIs are, you know, they're reversing directions here. So, so we can, yeah, we'll put together a couple of solvers that help identify this ideal situation. Let's see, it's probably going to be these couple of bars here. All right. So let me load up today's system. There we go. So whenever you load a file into BloodHound, you'll see down here on BloodHound it says we have to press F5, so that way we can get Ninja to build all that indicator data that we need. All right. I'm going to switch over to the Logic tab here, and I'm going to build a new Logic template. All right. So yeah, let me take a moment. So to kind of clarify all these templates here. So the BloodHound file that I just loaded, that's called the BloodHound template. And then inside the BloodHound template, you can have multiple logic templates, right? So you can have templates within the bigger template, right? So consider, the BloodHound template is the container that contains all of these logic templates, right? So just a little clarification there. All right, so we're going to build a DM, let's see, trend filter here. All right, first thing I'll put together is the ADX. So, because we already have that built, right? We already have the ADX built. So I can just rebuild that from the existing solvers here, right? So I've got this ADX slope solver that's identifying when the ADX is sloping up, and so I just need to grab another function node and set the mode back to mirror long like we had it before. There we go. So really this is kind of giving us both a long and a short. Alright, so there is our identification that the ADX is sloping up, right, which is telling us that we're definitely in a good trend move when the ADX is sloping up. Alright, next step is we're going to analyze whether the DI minus is on top or if the DI plus is on top. Let me scroll back a little bit. Yeah. So here we can see the DI plus is on top. So if the DI plus is on top, that tells us we're in an uptrend, right? So we can see that we're in an uptrend here. And if the red line, the DI minus is on top, that means we're in a downtrend. So we'll look at the DIs to identify what trend, what the trend of the market is. So we're going to use a comparison solver and compare the DIs to each other. So we can call this something like the DI's direction. I like to try and keep the name short, but sometimes it just doesn't look right. Alright, so there we go. DI's direction. So we're going to put the DI plus up here in indicator A and the DI minus down here in indicator B. Alright, so let's set this up. we'll find our DM indicator. There we go, and I'm pretty sure I'm just using a 14 period. Yep, I can see there's a 14 there on the chart. And we're going to use the DI minus. That's what we want to analyze, so we'll select that. And then do the same thing down here for the indicator B. Take this out, put this DM indicator in here. This time, we're going to select the DI minus or minus DI, and the period, keep the period at 14. And there we go. So you can see when the DI plus is on top, right, we're getting a long, right, we're in a long trend, so we're getting a long output. And DI minus is on top, we're getting a short output. So now we can connect, oops, there we go, connect these two conditions together, put that in there, right? So the ADX solver, right, it's telling us we're in a trend, but we don't know what the direction is. So now we can add this guy to the AND node, and there we go, that now filters out the direction. So far we can see when we have a strong trend identified by the ADX. So we can see that, let me get an arrow, right? So even when the ADX is, I'm sorry, even when the DIs are sloping towards each other, we're still getting a strong trend. But we want to, if we want to identify the strong trend, then we need to eliminate when the DIs are sloping towards each other. So in this case, I'm only interested when the DI minus is sloping up. And let me make a change here. Let's disable that. There we go. So we're only interested when the DI minus is sloping up to identify an even stronger downtrend. And then to identify a strong uptrend, we'll look for when the DI plus is sloping up. Right? So essentially, we're going to add more stringent conditions to this. Alright, so let's grab a couple of slope solvers, like so. And let's see, at first we'll look at the DI plus. We'll look at the slope of the DI plus. Alright, let's grab our DI plus. We'll look back here. So here we go. We've got our DI plus sloping up, right? The blue line is sloping up. Now we're only interested when it's sloping up, so we're not interested in the short output when it's sloping down, right? So when the DI plus is sloping up, that's telling us we're in a long trend, so we only want the long output here. So I'm just going to set the evaluate to long only for this guy. There. Alright, so we got that part. So let's name this. Alright, so the DI the DI plus is in an upslope. Alright, so let's grab another slope solver. to look at the DI minus. Okay, so this is going to be the minus DI in an upslope, like so. All right. Let's go select the indicator. Here we go. Now we want to select the minus DI. All right, so let's take a look at that. Now let's go back here. All right. So our DI minus, the red line, is sloping up, but we're getting a long output, right? So that's the opposite of the trend, right? So when the DI minus is sloping up, we're actually in a downtrend here, right? We can see a downtrend. So we need to reverse the solver's output. So we need a short output when the DI minus is sloping up to identify this downtrend. So what we can do is we can use a different output here. So I'm going to turn the output in direction, turn that off, and I'm going to turn the against direction, I'm going to turn that on. So essentially that kind of reverses our slope directions. So now when our red line is sloping up, we're getting a short output, and that's what we want, the short output to identify this downtrend. And we're not interested when the DI minus is sloping down, right? So we don't want this short output. So let's set our evaluate to short only, like so. There we go. All right. Now, essentially it's taking two solvers to identify when the DI minus is sloping up or the DI plus is sloping up. So what we're going to do is join this together with an OR node, like so. Let's take a look at this. So this is just what we want. So we have our DI minus sloping up, and we're going to have a short output. Now our DI plus is sloping up, and we're getting a long output, right? So that's okay. So once we're going to get rid of this long output here. Let's see. Yeah, this long output will get filtered out with all of these other conditions here. So, like for example, remember this comparison solver here that's comparing the two DIs to each other. Right, so we can see here there was a long, but now there's a short, and so essentially this long and that previous short are going to cancel each other out once I connect this up to an AND node here. I'll connect this guy up, and hopefully you can see that there is even additional filtering going on. So let me shrink the chart up. I'm going to disconnect this guy again. And let's see. Take a look here. So as I connect this up, we'll see a lot of those long signals disappeared. So we're adding additional filtering. So now this is looking at really strong moments of the trend. So we have to have the ADX sloping up, telling us we're in a trend, and we have to have the DIs, basically the DIs have to be pointing away from each other, right? They have to be sloping away from each other to identify the strong trend. So here we go, another one. So that essentially is how the DM indicator is used, and and the BloodHound solvers to to identify that. Oh yes, I forgot one more component. So this is even going to get stricter. So I left out the threshold of the ADX. So let's see. John was suggesting 19 as a threshold. So let's put a line on here. Alright, so we have our white line representing a threshold of 19. So we also want to filter this out when the ADX has to be above 19, which will filter out even stronger trends. Well, it'll filter for 4 stronger trends. So it'll filter out weaker trends. So let's see if I can find something here. And yeah, here's a spot. And oh, oops, I accidentally removed. There we go. Okay, there's our line again. So we can see here the ADX is above that 19 level. So it let's see. So yeah, so it looks like we're going to get rid of most of all these long signals back here on the back of the chart, and we'll keep these couple of long signals here, right here. So alright, so let's add some more filtering. So we're going to grab a threshold solver, connect that in so we can see it. Alright, so we're going to look for the ADX to be above 19. Alright, so I'm going to set 19 in there. Set our indicator over to the ADX, and wrong one, ADX, there we go. Alright, using the standard 14 period. Alright, ADX is selected, and so we want both. So remember, the ADX is non-directional, so when the ADX is above 19, we both want a long output and a short output because it's non-directional. So, and let's see, I'm going to put another 19 in here just to generate some more additional filtering. So previously when this was 0, right, this was using BloodHound's fuzzy logic. So you can see the output kind of varies a little bit. But, yeah. But we want to use an absolute value of 19. So you just put that in there twice. And now we can see it filters out the ADX above 19 as an absolute. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have here. So once I connect the solver up, you'll see a lot of these signals disappear. Connect that up. There we go. So that added some even more filtering. So now this is going to tell you when price is when price has reached an even stronger trend point. So yeah. All right. So yeah, John's just kind of throwing out some comments about his practical experience in using the DM indicator. So I think John is using a smaller period ADX. So I guess bottom line is, I'm just throwing this out as an example to build the system. So, if you guys are interested in using this, playing around with it, definitely kind of, play around with the periods. And you might use different threshold values. I think John uses a lower threshold value for when you're using a higher period ADX. So then John uses a lower threshold value for his ADX. So since I have my ADX up to 14 period, John is suggesting that he uses a lower value. I think something like 14, or lower. But you just kind of have to play around with this, guys, because setting up your indicator periods, it has to be kind of matched with the instrument that you're trading and the bar size that you're trading. So as you use different instruments, different instruments have different volatility, and different chart sizes, different time frames also have different volatility. So you have to play around with your indicator settings and your threshold settings as well, to kind of find what works with with the chart that you're using. So, and also another suggestion from John is he doesn't use this on the triggering chart. He uses it on other charts, on other time frame charts as well. So kind of like sort of as a filter on a higher time frame. Not as the actual trigger. So just kind of use your imagination as to how this might benefit you and work with you if you're interested in this. So, but I'm just showing you just how to build the system in BloodHound. So I really not telling you what settings to use, right? So I typically just use the default settings of my indicators. So these examples are more about how to build it in BloodHound, and then you guys will have to fine-tune the indicator settings to best fit your instrument and your time frame that you're working with on the chart. Next topic will be covering the next solver on the list. And it seems like we're kind of on the topic of market trend and market volatility. Basically, kind of the broader gauge of the market, or a broader gauge of the instrument's movement. And so the next solver kind of falls in line with the same topic, loosely speaking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a regression channel indicator on here. All right, so I've got the ANA regression channel. So if you don't have it, I would suggest getting it if you like to use the regression channel. This ANA one has a lot of benefits to it over Ninja's standard one. Let's see. Just gonna change some colors around. Alright, so the next solver we're going to cover is the regression channel width. So as this channel widens and narrows, it's giving you a feedback of how volatile the swing points are in the market. Right? So all these trend swings, the channel is kind of measuring how wide these swing movements are. And so that's what the next solver is going to tell you. So let's I'm going to make a new logic template, and I'm going to throw the regression channel width on here. There we go. And we'll connect that up. So alright, so before I get started, let me just kind of show you. If you want to see the documentation on this, we can go to documentation. Right, that'll open up your web browser, and then you can see this menu on the right side. And if we scroll down to BloodHound reference, then we have a list of solvers down here, and we can go to Regression Channel Width. So, and there's the written description and explanation of, what the regression channel width is doing for you. So, and there's also a previous video on this, right? So, all right, so let's see. Getting back to this guy. So what this is going to do is this is going to tell us when the channel gets to a certain width, right? So the cool thing about the indicator I have on my chart, the ANA regression channel, is that if I step backwards on my chart, you can see the indicator actually updates itself going backwards in time. So that's a really cool feature. So let's see. Let me step forward here. Yeah. So if we look at the right two bars, if we look at BloodHound's output, right, we can see the output begins to slope down, and that's because the channel is beginning to narrow. So let me step forward here, right? So the channel is narrowing. Now if I step backwards, you can see the channel is beginning to widen, right? It's beginning to widen and widen and widen, like so. So it's staying pretty wide, much wider than it was before. If I keep going back, now we can see the channel is beginning to narrow a little bit, right? And it's beginning to narrow again. So that the width of the channel is always measured perpendicularly. So as the angle of the channel changes, right, the measurement is always going to be perpendicular. So let's see. Yeah. So there, the channel has kind of flattened out a little bit more. And so once again, the width is going to be perpendicular. So, and so the key settings to this solver is, determine what the indicator, what the channel, regression channel period is going to be, and what the width is going to be. So actually I should make sure that this is also set to 50 and 4. So what's on my chart is 3.5, so I should change that to 4. So that way what's on the chart and what's in BloodHound match up a little better. Alright, so we have our indicator settings. And there's just some default settings in here, whether they're good or whether they work well with your instrument and your chart setting. That's another thing. You'll probably want to go in here and adjust this so that it matches the instrument and the time frame of your chart a little better, right? So right now it's set to ATRs, right? So ATRs is a way of auto-adjusting these width requirements based on the volatility of the ATR indicator. So let's see, the ATR, actually let's put the ATR on here. There we go. All right, so we have the ATR on here. So, yeah, the ATR, that's right. It does adjust a little bit on a range chart. So it's adjusting to the size of the body. But the ATR, I think it works better on minute charts, tick charts, things like that. So actually, well, let's go ahead and set this to a minute chart. So let's see. Yeah, so looking at this ATR, we can see that as the candles got longer, the ATR slopes up. And then as the bodies got smaller here, so we got some really small bodies here, early in the morning that ATR began to fall. And then we got some bodies, candle bodies here, really long candle bodies, and the ATR rose. So you can see the ATR is adjusting for the volatility of the candle bars. So using an ATR, in the channel width setting, right, kind of auto adjusts the width of the channel to how volatile the market is, something like that. So that's kind of the purpose of why this ATR option is in here. So, but to better understand kind of how this width target works, I'm going to set these to ticks. So ticks are easier to visualize on the chart. So let's see. I need to find a point. I'm going to try and find a point on the chart where the channel is pretty narrow. There we go. That channel gets pretty narrow. And so now, let's see. I need to kind of guesstimate how wide that channel is. So let's try 40 ticks. And so I'm just going to take a measurement of how wide the channel is. So the width of the channel is being measured, on the current bar here. And okay, there we go. So this channel's pretty wide. But then again, so if I'm using ticks, once again, the width of the channel is all going to depend on the instrument you're using and the time frame, of course, as well. So let's see. So let's take a look. So the channel now is less than 100 ticks. As I step backwards, it's, you can barely see it, but you can see the width of the channel is growing a little bit. Right, so it got a little narrower, and it got a little wider. So let's step forward here, and I'm sure this channel will start getting wider again. There we go. So we can definitely see the channel is expanding. And so at this bar, right, so at this moment, at this bar, our channel widened to 100 ticks. Right, so once again, this solver is, or I should say, not the solver, but the channel, the regression channel indicator the width of the channel is a measurement of how wide these swing points are. So it's measuring the swing points that's inside the channel, like so. So these are the various swing points that's being measured in this channel at this particular point in time. So there you go. So, you know, kind of the advantage of this is when you're looking at the width of the channel, you know that price is going to be moving up and down enough so that you have a better success rate of your profit target getting hit. Right? So to give some examples, if right, I mean look at this right here. There we go. So as we can see, if you're trading in something like this, it's such a narrow range that what's the chances of your profit target getting hit? You know, so if we back up, let's see how skinny the channel gets. Right, so our channel is pretty skinny right there. And I'm going to lock the scale of the chart in. So now as we step forward, all of a sudden, boom, look how wide that channel opened up. So the channel is narrow trading range, and then we get this big bar here, and let's back up. So the channel is really narrow, and then we get this huge bar, and the channel begins to expand. Right, so as we get enough price action, you know, price movement, the channel widens. And of course that's what all traders want, is a lot of price movement. That's how you get your profit targets hit. So that's kind of how the regression channel, that's one way of using the regression channel, and that's one way of using this solver here. So, all right, I think that pretty much covers it. You know, this is a very simple solver, just looking at a very simple condition of the regression channel indicator. That's really all there is to it. So let's see. And you know what? We've reached the 12 o'clock mark here. So I'd like to save the next solver, the support resistance, for another day, because the support resistance solver takes the longest to explain, because the support resistance solver has a lot of functionality built into it, so it takes a while to go over that. So I'm going to save that for another day. That way this workshop doesn't go into a 4-hour workshop. So we'll end it here. And if you guys have any last-minute questions, please type them in, and I'll get those answered before we call it a day. So I'm just gonna stall for time here a little bit, and save my chart template. Oh, actually, let's go in here and name this. So there we go. So I save these chart templates, so that way if you do want, you know, any of these workshop BloodHound templates, you'll have the chart template to go with it. So, right, the chart template will load up all these indicators on your chart. It's a nice time-saving convenience. All right. So both the chart template and the BloodHound template have the same date in the file name. So, let's see. Well, you know, as usual, if you'd like to see something, you know, addressed in these workshops, just send your question in, and send some screenshots in too. That's very helpful. And have a good weekend and a good trading week next week. All right? See you guys later. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.